Should you become a full-time trader? A lot of people have this dream and this fantasy about being a full-time trader. I'm going to talk to you about full-time trading and see if it's something for you. So we're going to get right into it, being a full-time trader. We're going to get started with the idea of what that would look like. So first things first, the main thing that you have to understand if you're going to be a full-time trader is the distribution in our multiple per month. So as you all know, trading might not be the most consistent form of income. I'm going to get right into it. In the Netherlands, at least, it's a little bit hard to get a mortgage if trading is your only source of income. So I just want to have that out of the way before we even continue, because that might be enough to throw some people off. We're going to talk about what it looks like per month. So you see, this is literally our data. We have this data of the past 5 years, and this is literally the net P&L that we would have realized per month. So as you can see, in 2020, we had a pretty slow year, the slowest out of these 5 years. So I'm going to get started with 2020 because it's the most realistic, because you're going to end up taking slow years. So what you want to know before you even get started is that you're not going to make money every single month. It's like owning a business, really. Not every month is going to be a profitable one. You might end up having 5 or 6 profitable months, but then you have 2 losing months too. So that's the number one thing I'm going to get right out of the way. Like, are you able to handle this? Because you're not going to be making money every single month. You can see it clearly based on our data here that not every month was a profitable month. So not every month would have gotten us income. Not every month would have gotten us payouts. So the one thing you should know too, if you're relying on prop firms, and I learned this lesson the hard way, and it was extremely stressful back in 2023 when all these firms started disappearing. The firms can disappear. They're not set in stone. They're not as stable as you might think. You can also get banned from prop firms. I've been warned by FTMO that I'm not allowed to risk more than 1% nowadays, because I had a warning that I was passing the account so quickly and I was risking too much. So stuff like that will happen. Also, bad months will happen. You will have months where you're not making any money for 2 or 3 months in a row. For example, right here. April, you have a decent month, then May is a losing month, June doesn't really make up for that, and July is also a losing month. So these 3 months, you're not really making any money. Then in August, you might make a little bit, and only in September are you making enough. So there's a little thing I want to talk about, that is, can you handle it mentally? If the answer is no, and you still want to go full-time into trading, make sure that you have a stable income beside trading that covers your fixed expenses. That could be a small part-time job, that could be an e-commerce store, that could be anything that covers at least the majority or all your monthly expenses. Let's say you have rent is €1,000 a month or $1,000 a month. You want to make sure you have something that covers at least the majority of that. It decreases the amount of pressure that you need money from trading, and makes it really a lot easier to actually stick to your strategy too. So ensure that you have a stable income that covers at least your fixed expenses. Then, even if, and I would say that this is relevant in the first place, like in general, this is really important, but even if you think you can handle it mentally, ensure that you have a solid savings buffer, at least 12 months worth of expenses. That way, if you're having 3 or 4 losing months in a row, you're not panicking because you don't need the money from trading. That's so important, because relying on trading is extremely stressful and nearly impossible if you need money to pay for next month's rent and you're relying on trading to get that money. It's going to be extremely hard because the market does what it wants and your edge might not play out all the time. So if you do want to end up going into full-time trading, make sure that you have at least a solid savings buffer and live below your means. If you're averaging, for example, over the past 12 months, you've averaged around $10,000 a month, make sure that your expenses do not exceed $4,000 to $5,000 a month. That way you can build up a solid savings buffer and also get into that comfortable state that you know that you do not need money. Personally, you guys have seen my my bank statements from last year. I made around 70,000 euros, which is around, I don't know, $80,000 something. But my expenses are around 1,200 to 1,500 euros a month. I'm really living way below my means. I don't really spend a lot of money. I'm investing a lot of money. I don't like to live a lavish lifestyle either. I don't really give a shit about cars and watches. So I'm living a fairly modest life. I'm traveling a lot, but traveling can be relatively cheap depending on where you go to. but I'm assuring myself that I do not need any money from trading to survive the next year or so. I've got around 36 months worth of expenses saved up, so I'm not panicking at all. So I don't really care about what happens. And this is when you can go into full-time trading. I'm going to tell you my story in a second too. I'm going to show you exactly my story, and I'm going to tell you that. But first I want to talk about the pros and cons of full-time trading. So obviously the number one thing is lots of freedom. Now, everyone has a different idea of freedom. Some might say that their idea is to buy a fancy car or buy a fancy house, whatever. Others, like myself, want to go traveling, want to have the freedom to just go camping in the woods whenever they feel like. That to me is the idea of freedom. Anyways, whatever you want and whatever you see as freedom, it is attainable with trading. Then there's scalability, because once you have capital, it's literally a matter of consistently growing that capital and compounding it. So if you have 100K and you're making 30 to 40% a year, you're doing extremely well. You make 30 to 40K. But if you have 1 million, now you're making 300 to 400K. And the fun thing is that nowadays it's really easy to attract capital. It can be through investor capital, it can be through prop firms, it can be through Darwin-X. There's endless way to gain capital. You don't need your own capital right at the bat. So it's really easy to scale nowadays, especially if you compare it to 10 to 15 years ago. So that's definitely another pro too. Also, low taxes. Now, I'm not sure about this 100% because I'm just talking for myself, who's living in the Netherlands, that if you're trading your own capital, you're paying relatively low taxes. If you're trading prop capital, it's different, but I'm just talking about trading your own capital right now. Then one of the most important things to me is being your own boss. There's no one who's going to tell you what to do and when to do something. You're completely reliant on yourself, which might also be a con, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Then it's location independent, right? You don't need to be set in an office. You don't need to be stuck working from home or working from a place with colleagues. It doesn't really matter. You can work from anywhere in the world, essentially. Now, there's a couple of cons to that, and do not underestimate these cons because they can be pretty detrimental, and they were to me. I'm going to tell you that in a second, but trading can be extremely lonely. Because at the end of the day, even if you have a team, it's you versus the markets. Now, I'm really lucky to have a solid team around me, which once again, I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but it can be extremely lonely, and it is extremely lonely if you're literally just working from home or working from a beach in Bali. It doesn't even matter. If you're all by yourself, it is still lonely. Then it can be really stressful, right? Because essentially you're managing a business, you're running a business, and that business can lose money. You're paying money sometimes and you're losing for a couple of months in a row. So that can be extremely stressful. Once again, tying me back into this, you want to make sure that you have a really solid savings buffer. Then it's inconsistent income, like I said, and you don't have any sick leave, because if you're sick and you're not able to trade, then you're literally just missing out on money because you're not able to execute your edge. And there's no insurance, there's nothing that's going to pay you to basically keep getting income once you're sick. And then finally, you're not building up any pension, and you're not getting any retirement funds build up. So I'm not entirely sure if this is the same way in every country. I know in the Netherlands, for example, once you're an entrepreneur and once you're working for yourself and you're running your own business, which trading, I view it the same way. I see it as running your own business. You're not building up a pension. You've got to do that yourself. So there's not an employer who's going to do this for you. Once again, telling you that you should live below your means. That way you're able to invest in, for example, the S&P 500 to build up your own pension, your own retirement fund. So those are basically the pros and cons of trading. In general, I do feel that trading is just a great way to provide freedom. I'm going to tell you my story, the way it started for me. So once I started to make pretty decent money with trading, I went and traveled. And this was my dream for a long, long time. I was studying music in college, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I started traveling. And once I started traveling, I enjoyed it. I did it for a year, maybe 2 years. I went to a lot of different countries, usually by myself, because the majority of people were at work or at school. Sometimes I went with my friends or my girlfriend back then, my ex-girlfriend now. So I did it for 2 years. I saw amazing stuff. I'm so happy to have experienced it, but eventually I came back and I was relatively, well, I don't really like the term, but depressed. And the main reason for that was because I was extremely lonely and I didn't really feel like I had a goal in life anymore. I was making money online. I was doing fairly well. I was able to save up for my parents. I was able to save up for my pension, for my retirement. I was able to invest, but I was literally just traveling. I wasn't meeting as much people as I thought I was gonna, because everyone has a job, obviously. Everyone has school or work, so they're not traveling in mid-February, for example. So eventually it just felt kind of like directionless. So after 2 years, I literally came back home and I was like, well, fuck, what do I do now? I don't really know what to do, because eventually trading, yes, you have goals as in you're scaling up your capital, but eventually trading might just be one of the most boring professions there is, because you're literally doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. There's no closing a deal. There's no finishing a project. You're literally just executing a strategy over and over and over again. You don't want to change that strategy because then you're messing up your edge. So it can be quite boring, and that's what it was for me. So I felt a little bit lonely. I felt a little bit directionless. I didn't really know what to do, which is when I came back to the Netherlands, moved back in with my parents, and I decided to start a capital management firm, which is Infinity Capital, which is my Dutch firm where we're educating traders to basically work for a trading firm. And the main thing is I opened up an office and I managed to get myself a team of wonderful traders. We're a team of 7 people right now, and they're from all ages and all backgrounds. And I had to get a team around me to basically feel that sense of purpose again. So now I have an actual goal. We want to grow this company to be the most sophisticated, the largest, and the best educational company that allows people to make a career out of trading. No bullshit, no fake promises about making a shit ton of money. And that gave me a purpose once again. So now every day I'm in the office and I'm honestly happier than I was when I was traveling. Of course, I do miss it sometimes, but I had to give myself a full-time job again to feel that sense of purpose, because trading full-time, yes, it allows for great freedom, but it also gets boring and lonely extremely quickly if you don't really have a purpose aside from trading. So I went back to the office. Like I said, I got myself a wonderful team of 7 people. We're all professional traders now, and I basically am now once again in this office. I'm literally recording this video from my office right now. I'm growing a YouTube channel. I've made all these goals for myself that kind of gave me purpose, because I was literally at that point, I was trading during the morning, because I was day trading back then. I was trading for an hour or two, and I would literally just go outside, drive in my car. I had a Tesla back then, so I was really enjoying, going on the German Autobahn and trying to see how fast I could go on my Tesla, all that stupid shit. And I was literally doing that for like months and months on end, and it was extremely boring, extremely lonely. So now I feel like I've got a purpose again, basically. And that's the #1 thing I want to talk about if you do decide to go full-time into trading. It's going to be extremely lonely sometimes. So I guess I was able to get my point across. If you do want to go full-time into trading, do remember that it does provide a lot of freedom, and it does allow you to focus on your hobbies or other side business you may have. Do remember that it's a little bit stressful, and that you want to make sure that you have another source of income. You don't want trading to be your only source of income. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope my story was able to help you guys out a little bit. And once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.